How do you explain, what is your doctrine on the origin of the Caucasian race?
Well, the Caucasian race came about, they are called white people, and they were white people. It was made that. Caucasian is a name given to the quality of the man, means originally bone and stale face. The person have a stale color, and his bones are weak, and the color Caucasian. But actually, he was made white. This was brought about, we would consider just recently. To talking into billions and trillions of years, the Caucasian race thereafter is just here of today almost. That took place 6,000 years ago.
And a guest, and maybe he could help me to convey a message to you. He's my friend. I like him a lot, and I'm going to tell you why I brought him in and why I think he's important to the future of you learning about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And his name is Yosef bin Asiel Israel. Salam alaikum.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, who appeared in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, to whom righteous and holy praise is forever due, we thank that great God for his coming to the wilderness of North America to raise up amongst us the first begotten from the dead, that special soul. I speak none other than the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. In those holy and righteous names, I greet you in the words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. We'll be right back after these quick commercials. Looking for something that feels good, looks great, and stands the test of time? Well, we have it for you. Black Royalty is our athleisure line that is made from the finest bamboo and cotton blend. We have designed high quality tracksuit and t-shirts in multiple colors that provide you the most comfort when you need it most. Whether you're in the gym or running errands or just lounging around with loved ones, you need to be in the best quality clothing as possible. We have constructed a high quality clothing line that does not break the bank, and we beat out all of our competitors on price. So please, if you're interested in being comfortable, not just in the gym, but when you're running around and doing errands, please visit blackroyaltywear.com. Also, you can find us on Instagram at Black Royalty. And if you have any questions or comments about our brand and how you can help participate, you can find us at blackroyaltywear@gmail.com. We'll be quick to answer your questions, and with our responses, we will be very thorough. So also, like I said, Black Royalty is for you because it was made by you with the intentions of serving you. So leave all those other clothing lines behind and get on what makes sense, something that's going to stand the test of time, because black don't crack. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back again to another installment of Know Thyself Radio Show, where we make it our duty, our responsibility to give you nothing but the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad to solve the problems of the black man and woman in this day and time. And I again want to extend a special thank you to Brother Khalif Muhammad, last week's guest, who did a magnificent job in articulating the history of the Nation of Islam, the history of Crow, his impact, Brother Munir Muhammad impact, as well as Shaheed Muslim's impact. And he also was able to surmise it in such a way that it gave a clearer picture of a lot of the history and information that we did not just know, but we took for granted. So again, Brother Khalif Muhammad, it was a pleasure having you on, and I look forward to your return to this beautiful podcast. And as well, I look forward to having Brother Shaheed Muslim on so we can continue to give these beautiful examples of men who have heard the truth of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and then put that truth into action. But today I wanted to come on and bear witness again to the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, but articulate a lot of the circumstances and situations that are happening in the present world today, especially how it affects our people. As I look and continue to look, whether it be news, whether it be conversations that I'm having with my peer, younger demographics, older groups, I continue, for the most part, to hear a rhetoric, whether they understand it or not, of defeat and compromise. And I know you're looking, oh man, how could you, in your short period of time, come to that conclusion that these brothers and sisters are intimating to you defeat and compromise? Well, to me, it's very apparent. Whenever you have a conversation with our brothers and sisters, and I don't mean everyone, but a large majority of them, too much that we can't ignore it. And whenever we're having a conversation, as much as I try to my best of my ability to avoid these conversations, because you can tell by one's lifestyle choices what type of person that they are. But listen, we still have to go through this process, because one of the missions or charge to the civilized is to teach the uncivilized, meaning that if you have knowledge that can save someone's life, you must impart it into them and upon them. So I have to, as a responsibility and obligation of the Creator, of the messenger and his mandate that was given to us, we got to teach. So, but in the conversation, they start to give these little hints and signs that they are totally committed to keeping things that the way they currently are. At one point or another, has it ever been in the conversation that I'm having with these individuals, it's time to separate, it's time to create a nation, a government, a place of refuge of our own. The more you get into the conversation, it's how can we integrate? How can we immerse ourselves into these organizations and institutions to try to change it from the inside? And I know that seems like an intelligent approach for someone who is not well versed in on how governments or institutions or nations are built, or those who truly understand scripture, whether it be Torah, Quran, or even the new gospel. Though they say they have a thorough understanding and knowledge of these things, never at any point has it been a group that would acquire their freedom, especially one has been in the servitude as the black man and women here in America, most importantly, I think, but throughout this planet, has been given some type of leniency by their oppressor, by their slave masters, by their captors. Never has it been a situation where they've been allowed to ingratiate themselves into society, where at some point that ferocious and insidious hate and disdain that those captors had of their captives just suddenly went away. Nor did it dissipate, nor did it disappear. At some point, we have to come to the realization that though they're outwardly expressions of their hate, of their continuous and perpetual incentive to keep us in this stage of total confusion and disarray, will never change. Because of the outward expression may be a little different, because they've learned that you have to evolve with the times. You have to cope with the adaptation of one's circumstance and situation. What am I saying here? If your slave has been in a situation where you've kept him in certain situations where he has been treated with the utmost disdain and disgust, and he starts to acquire a sense of self-dignity, self-pride. He wants his freedom. He yearns to be from and out of those shackles and chains. Then he starts to create and devise plans to be relentless in his pursuit of freedom. What will that captor do if he's intelligent? Well, one would beg to reason that he would devise ways that will make you look like, hey, I'm acquiring my freedom. I'm obtaining some type of progression, some type of progress in society. I am somehow changing my circumstances by alleviating some of the just outright and horrendous treatments that I have faced. But in actuality, the circumstances and situations are still the same because I'm still a captive. I'm still enslaved. I just may not be enslaved and captive or held captive as the way I previously was. That's intelligent. You change the environment without changing the circumstances in which you plan to keep that person, or in our case, persons, entrapped. Perception is key. So what have we done? At some point, in some time, we have, and excuse the cheap expression, drunk the Kool-Aid, meaning that we have convinced ourselves that what we are digesting is good for us and it's changing our circumstances. But in actuality, the reality of things is still the same. The same thing that we wanted from the outset is still being held for us, and that's peace, justice, freedom, and equality. This is the premise of this conversation today. And I'm going to get into Fall of America by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad to further give credence to why this great master, teacher, messenger of Allah had given us so much to use in our arsenal to free ourselves and to keep ourselves free. But most importantly, to identify that we aren't free. But as I go into that, I just want to just lay a couple things down as framework for the motivating reasons why I feel this is important for you and I. Now, we, throughout our tenure here in the wilderness of North America, have been told things are better. Point an example. When we were in chattel slavery in the South, when we were literally in chains and bonds and shackles, when we were forced to mate with siblings and parents to create circumstances of incest, when our fathers and our mothers were being raped, buck broken, mutilated, hung, and every other vile thing that can be done to a human being, we were given the false sense of freedom or progress with the Emancipation Proclamation. And then when that came into existence, though we know our circumstances really didn't change, and you had the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, we became sharecroppers. And the rhetoric started to come from the white supremacists that, well, at least you're not in chattel slavery anymore, so you're doing better. So damn, we're not in chattel slavery no more. And we started to think, well, it don't seem like we're doing better, but you got a point. I guess we're not in chattel slavery. We're sharecroppers, though it's the same thing. Then when we moved from sharecropping, because we started to get amongst each other, build our own, build some type of family bond, because we had no other choice, because white people didn't want you in their institutions, want you in their schools, want you around them, period, unless being a slave. And, and I want to kind of contextualize being around white people, because white people were always around you, but it was at their bequest. It was when they wanted you, because you had mothers who would feed and raise and pretty much rear the children of white people. You had sexual exploitations of both male and female when it came to white people. And then you had the circumstances and situations where blacks were put in such hostile situations that they were forced to create inventions that would help alleviate some of the hardships they were faced at these jobs that white people would later take credit for, and then realize, hey, we can have these Negroes because they have such ingenious minds to create a level of ingenuity in our society where they can make all of the necessary inventions that will progress us as a nation. So yeah, they were around you, but it was only for their benefit and always your detriment. Now, when we move from sharecrop into the Jim Crow South, we see another circumstance and situation where they tried to convince us again that times are changing. Now, you're not sharecropping anymore. You're just in a segregated Jim Crow, racist, not just the South, but all over the country where white and black people resided. Jim Crow was predominantly enforced in the South, but it was just as effective in the North, in the West, and wherever people of different races coexisted. Why am I saying that? Because the same pain, the same hurt, the same murder, the same mayhem, the same feel of being in these inhumane circumstances or situations still exist. You got in the sharecropping late 1800s, the rise of the Ku Klux Klan and the hanging and the murdering of our people. That was no different than the slave master or the slave catchers killing and hanging and burning and mutilating us continuously. No, it's different. When you got into the Jim Crow South, the slave catchers morphed into the police department. And so now you have again the same circumstances and situations. So instead of being hung from trees, though we still were being hung from trees, you were getting shot down in the street. You were getting dogs, police dogs, sicked and attacked on you. Taught to bite and attack your genitalia. You got sprayed down with water hoses. I mean, everything that could possibly be done to you to hurt, maim, or kill you still existed. But we were convinced because white people told us your circumstances and situations has changed. Then you went into the 1950s and 60s and civil rights movements. And you start to see, well, things are changing, and you let them convince you again that something is different from the 1920s. What am I saying? Each generation, we have been told and lied to that we are progressing, but the same hate and disdain that was interjected into the populace of our people still existed, still was maintained. It was just maintained in different forms, in different various ways. They changed the clothes, but the person was still the same. But the problem with that is that we got worse and worse as it relates to our participation or desire to participate in our own freedom. We relinquished our power and our authority, which was given to us by just being the direct descendants of God, and we gave it to our oppressor. Now we want the courts to fight for us and give us justice, though Justice Taney in the 1800s stated that there is no right, no law, no rule, no privilege that a black man is to have that a white man is bound to respect. Well, you say that's old times. That doesn't still exist. Well, if that's the case, how are we in 2019, few months from being in 2020, and the circumstances and situations are still the same? That's what I'm getting to. And I can keep going through the example, 70s, the 80s, the 90s. You even got Barack Obama. In today, 2008, President Barack Obama, a black man, was elected, former senator, elected president, and we were told, well, you got the greatest reparation that anybody can have. You got a black president. But what did that mean for the progression of our people? What circumstances came into existence that would alleviate the pain that we've been facing for 400 plus years? It was non-existent. Our people were still getting murdered and mutilated and killed in the street indiscriminately. We were still seeing police officers who traced their roots in history and their obligations back to the slave catchers killing us with impunity. The people who, under the false auspices of being there to serve and protect, we were being indiscriminately found guilty on minuscule charges inside of their court systems for petty drug charges, which were brought into our communities by the white man. We wasn't going down to Colombia, down to Mexico, down to Honduras, down to Chile, and bringing up cocaine and drugs and opiums and flooding the communities with them. You were bringing them in by the boatloads. You and your CIA and your FBI and all your other intelligence agencies formulated and created plans that would bring drugs into the inner cities. Starting on California, when you took cocaine and found ways to cook it and crack it up and put it into the black communities that now will turn our people into dope heads. The same tactics you had been using since you became a people that was knowledgeable enough of conquest. What did you do when you got over here and you tried to decimate the natives of this land? You gave them fire water. Alcohol is a drug, whether we accept it or not, people. And it was used to help pacify and also lower the guards of the people, which makes them more susceptible to conquest. You see the same thing you did when you went to China with the opioids. We see the same thing what you did in East India with the opioids. When you went to Africa and you gave us your false god, that's a drug too. The Bible was used as a drug to confuse and to put our people in a state of total oppression. So your tactics have never changed. But yet and still, white people now are being ferociously and viciously attacked with the same force that was used against the other peoples of this planet. And now this opioid epidemic is through the roof in these white enclaves in rural America and in some urban cities, smaller places like Vermont, Long Island, places in Kentucky and Ohio and Nebraska. I mean, I could go on and on that are being totally wiped out and decimated by the same thing that you use to try to kill off the original people. It is a case where, well, you get to what I'm getting to, what Malcolm had said before. But you are falling victim to the same atrocities that you tried to place on us. And because of that, you know that now you are in natural decline, meaning that your birth rate, and I mentioned this before, but I have to keep reiterating it, because when a person is at his lowest point, when he feels that they have no way or means to get out of that circumstance or situation, when their back is completely against the wall, they go all out to try to preserve their life. That means they're in kamikaze mode. They would do whatever it takes. And so what am I saying? White society as a whole is in kamikaze mode. That means they would do whatever it takes to preserve or give some type of extension on their time. And so now we see more than ever the bombardment of the lies and deceptions. So what is the new drug they're using? Homosexuality, confusion of sexual orientation, along with more drugs, along with the promotion of a sick moral system that is being so pervasive amongst the people in our so-called communities. We are the only people who have entertainers as our leaders, as our thought leaders, and our so-called thought leaders are really just entertainers. What am I saying? I'm saying you promote Jay-Z, you promote this person and that person and Meek Mill to be at the forefront of any type of change in society, or to be held in a high regard as it relates to social issues, moral issues, some type of governance and leadership. But we know they don't have the capacity to do so. Why? Because they were taught and trained and reared by you. They're being paid by you. The circumstances and situations where they seem to be successful were created by you. Don't get me wrong, black people have always been in the most opportune, I would say, or unopportune environment to still make something out of nothing. But if it doesn't have the proper context, if it doesn't have the proper purpose and direction, it won't yield any true benefit as far as invoking what we all say we want is freedom. So our ingenuity, our creativity, our resolve, yes, these things are very good. Some would say even great, but if it doesn't have the proper direction and guidance, if it doesn't have purpose in it, it won't benefit the said goal and objective. Now, the thought leaders being entertainers, I mentioned that, so let me give some clarity to that point. Those who have acquired the necessary schooling, or we would surmise has the expertise on how to solve the economic, the social, the moral, the political issues that are facing black people in this day and time, when you peel off that layer, you see they're just smoke and mirrors. They're just there for show, because no one is willing to take the initiative to do what it needs to be done to really bring in freedom. They want to work within the framework of what's already created, meaning they want to work in the construct of white supremacy, meaning you as a black person will never be able to overthrow white supremacy by working inside of it. The point we must understand and we must internalize so that we can bring in the solution. You say, well, if nobody's there to bring in the solution, what do we just give up? Well, I didn't say that. I said those who have been put out front don't have the solution. But there was a man who had and still has the solution for our people. His name is the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the one who personally met and was taught by God himself, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom righteous and holy praise is forever due. That's why we've created this show, Know Thyself Radio, because to know thyself is to know the one who gave us the true knowledge of self, and that's the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So I can't come on here as if I have the solution or I have the answer, because my answers and solutions come directly from the man who was handpicked by God himself. Now, why, if the messenger has the answers, why are we still in the problems that we're in right now? Well, it has nothing to do with the messenger of God, brothers and sisters, just as it doesn't have nothing to do with God. You can falsely blame God for the position or predicament that you're in, but God gives you the room and the knowledge and the information, and he has given you the man who will equip you with that knowledge and information to bring yourself out of the circumstances that you're currently in. The problem is that you don't want to listen, take heed, and then put into action what it takes to be a free man and woman. That's the point. It's that God himself will come for you. He would take himself out of his glory and come travel from the east to the west to reveal himself to that special person who would then take the time, humble himself, and be taught to equip himself with the knowledge that gives him the power to free his people and to overthrow his oppressors. That's why we say the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad does not fit on the board with anybody else. He's not on the level with the so-called thought or civil rights leaders, revolutionaries, this person, that person. He's in a league of his own because he is the only one that has been taught by God himself. He's the only one who has a knowledge that has been proven to work and be beneficial for our people. Just look at the history of what the messenger was able to do with you, deaf, dumb, and blind. He didn't import any people from somewhere else. He didn't go bring up Mexicans from Mexico or bring Europeans over from Europe or whoever. No, he took what he had. The most downtrodden, the most underappreciated, the most disconnected, the most despicable of the planet, or at least we were identified as such, and brought you up to a glory where he cleaned you up, made your eyes bright again, made your skin glow, made you respectable and appreciate yourself and appreciate your women and appreciate your children and even respect your enemy. Not respect what they were doing to you, but have respect for them. See, that's a whole nother type of understanding to have, to be able to do those things which we've seen had never been done before that time. Now, I want to go into the Messenger's book, as I said, and read, because it's going to help further give clarity to what I'm saying. And this is from chapter 3, Self First. And it reads, Self first. We, the black people in America, do not think for self first. Failing to think for self first is the greatest mistake we, the poor black people who are up from servitude slavery of the fathers, can make. But for the slave master's children, our failure to think for self first is wiser than anything their fathers could hardly dream of in their day and time. Now, what did I say earlier? I said the one thing about this enemy is that his spirit, his nature, his disposition has not changed. His desire has not changed. His intent has not changed. But what has changed is the outwardly expression of those things just said. So what he was able to do was he was able to have the same control, power, and dominion over you without using the same amount of force directly. So what did he do? He convinced you to kill yourself and it'd be okay. Look into the urban cities. You're killing yourself. Yeah, he comes into and he kills you as well, under the premise that is you doing it to each other. In these big cities, when it's not enough murder, he comes in and he'll come and wreak some havoc with a black mask on, pretend like it's a black person, send gunshots one way and say it was from this person to create those crosstown rivalries and beefs and feuds between so-called gangs. Same tactics he's been using for a while, but he's just evolved them to make him more efficient. He's taught you to poison yourself now by putting drugs into your own systems, seeking these things to find ways to inundate yourself so you can escape from your reality. He's taught you to kill your own babies. He's taught you to rape your own women. You know, things that he used to do, he still does, but he's also been able to multiply the numbers and magnify the intensity by allowing by teaching you to do it yourself. So, of course, this is the founding fathers' dreams. Not just here in America, but of white supremacy and the original products of that evil genius Yaqub. To bring into existence a world where slavery would be self-perpetuating. Let me keep going. Self first. In over 100 years, we, the black people, have not learned to think for self first. This is due to the fact that we're still trying to think something for benefit of the slave master. Something to make him smile at the freed black slave. Think about what the messenger said. You go on television, you go on these radio shows, you make music that will please him. If a person gets up and starts talking too much truth or doing things that is actually beneficial and advantageous for his people, black people find ways to try to destroy and bring down that person or those groups of people. Because we keep trying to find ways to please our slave masters. We keep trying to find ways to, like I said earlier, immerse ourselves into their society so we can be with them in all aspects and avenues and activities of life. A brother once said, and this is so-called revolutionary, he said, man, we can go in these institutions, whether it be the FBI, the CIA, we got to get people inside of these systems so we can infiltrate them, just like they infiltrate us. He said, you know, you look up and it'll be 4 or 5 or 6 black people inside these organizations and we'll have some power. And yes, I can somewhat get the point, but brother and sister, that's not really articulated correctly, nor was it given with any real context, nor plan a strategy. What am I saying? First, the white man does not just allow you to be in his institutions without doing his due diligence. Just because you don't understand the proper protocols of studying a people, predicting their patterns and their behaviors, because you don't understand that, don't think that they don't understand it. They've created the Negro, the slave. They created the person that we are today. So of course they have a better understanding on what we would do in different circumstances and situations. And even for those who he knows will rebel against the system that has been created or the context of perception which has been introduced to our people, he vets those people out. So he's not just allowing anybody who would have the propensities or the capacity to come into their systems and cause havoc. He's well prepared for these things. He understands the threat and how to eliminate that threat. Now, why am I saying this? Because we are thinking that our place or position in these institutions is making change. But if we don't have a clear-cut, concise strategy or plan or program to go into these systems with, into these institutions, into these different offices and businesses and positions, then we won't accomplish anything, because we're going to go in there using the mind that they developed. We can't exclude or excuse the fact that from birth we had been contextualized in their systems, meaning whatever we think is better or beneficial for our people, it comes directly from their understanding. It comes directly from their teachings, meaning their mind, meaning they have taught us in a way that we do things that are against our best self-interests. That's why the messenger of God is so important, because he was not taught by the white man. He was not even taught by the Negro who was taught by the white man. He was taught by God. So he was a fresh vessel. That's the distinction that makes him head and shoulders above everyone else. So brother, no, that won't work. And that's why it hasn't worked, because we have numerous black CIA, FBI, NSA, politicians, lawyers, judges. And don't get me wrong, yeah, they may at some point have some benefit, but hell, white people may be able to benefit you in some aspect of your life at some point. But where's the collective overall goal and mission to create a said objective and goal? It's non-existent. See, but you're never going to have that inside. You're never going to be able to develop that inside. That's why it's so imperative that we come and separate from this reality. You can't overlook this. You're going to have to create a nation of your own if you really want to be a free, self-governed, self-sustainable people. Back to the messenger. Trying to win the love of the white slave master has been the black people's greatest mistake. Now it has become our gravest mistake. To have love for them, the white race, means the fire of hell that God has heated is being heated up for both you who love the devil and the devil too. Do not blame the white slave's master for your love and desire for them above your love and desire for Allah God, who loves you. while the white slave master, devil, does not love you. The devil's nature will not let him love you. Now, this is a great point, and it has to be made because we think, and I said earlier, and the messenger said earlier in this page, is that he has tricked us to a point that we feel that we are progressing, that we are evolving, that we are growing, that we are changing our circumstances in this society, when we actually are digging a greater hole for ourselves. The messenger of God said loving him was our biggest mistake, but it has turned into our gravest mistake. Meaning the more we love him, you see throughout this country and throughout the planet, the more we die. Well, you're saying, well, I can sleep with a white woman, she loves me. I married a white man, he loves me. But has his love, or so-called love, of all this mixed racing, has it changed one bit the state of our people? Go ahead, I'll give you a second. Okay, did you get an answer? Did you think about it? What was that answer? If you said no, then you were correct. Because at one point, we thought by unifying and strengthening our numbers, we would be successful. And it worked for us. But then, because we are so easily deceived, and because that spirit that was put in us, see, that's why you got to understand the 64 years that made us a slave from 1555 to 1619. That process of reducing you to the beasts of the field. So you didn't come in ready to be a savior. You was rambunctious. You was rebellious. You didn't take it bending over, so to speak, pardon the cheap expression. But over time, you became more and more willing to be reduced to a slave. And don't get me wrong, you had insurrections. After that, you had uprisings, but it always fell short. Why? Think about every rebellion, every insurrection, every uprising, every attempt to overthrow the slave master. How was it for you? It was not for you because you were overpowered by the slave master, the white man and his armies, so forth and so on. It was because one of us inside who still had that mind, that love, that affection for the white man, ratted us out, turned coat, and went or played double agent and went to the oppressor to reveal the intent and the plans. So yeah, this individual may be strong enough to fight that desire, but to hell, you need other brothers and sisters to make this a successful endeavor. So if those other brothers and sisters don't have that same strength, that same will, that same desire, your plan will be foiled. It would not work. So that's how it became our gravest mistake. That's because that 64 years was so powerful in making you a slave. Now, I'm giving some science right now, and I want you to really understand what I'm saying. Now you say, oh, I know all this stuff. Yeah, you may know all this stuff, but you need to have it in your hearing as such that you realize what you are doing to participate in your own servitude, your own perpetuation of this grave mistake. Because whether you're willing to admit it or accept it or not, you help participate in this domination of the white race over the black. Because you haven't put up enough of a fight, not even physical, I'm talking about mentally and spiritually, by preventing his ways to inundate you, where you start to produce actions that are in line and in concert with his desires for us. Think about what you eat. Are you eating a healthy, well-balanced diet? As the message is saying, are you eating to live? Or are you living to eat? Are you eating yourself in the ground? Look in the mirror. Do you have the body composition to fight this enemy? Or to withstand enough time where you're able to endure hardships, where you don't have to worry about eating this or eating that, or doing some type of rigorous physical activity that can ensure your survival? Think about that. Very few of us can. I look out the window and see our people each and every day obese, out of shape, and even if they're small, they're out of shape. Just because you're skinny, that don't mean you're in good shape. You don't have any strength, no muscle mass, you're not able to do anything. You don't have any understanding of the body and how to use it in the most effective way to preserve your life. So when you heard this commercials before saying vegan restaurant, yes, to protect your body, to give it the right nutrients that it needs, not just to operate physically, but mentally and spiritually. When you heard me talk about the boot camp, yes, to get us in training so that we prepare ourselves for any situation, so we have the ability of adaptation, that we're always prepared. This is what I'm trying to push on our people, because this is what the message has outlined as a way to be successful against our oppression. So think about those things. Now I can go on from the schooling, from everything else, but I think you get the point. Your love has been your greatest demise. I want to mention this real quick. It's a movie called Angry Birds, and I have younger children, so they was watching it. And it was a situation, it's based off of video games. Most of you may be aware of it, played it on your iPhone or something, Galaxy. But in this movie, because white people give messaging in all of their so-called entertainment, whether you're aware of it or not. And in this movie, it was a situation where the birds and the pigs were in conflict. But before that conflict was brought to the forefront, the pigs were able to convince the birds that they should party, that they should play. Get them in a state of mind where they're in perpetual party mode. So the whole time while they're partying and playing and everybody's kumbaya, everybody's friend, we're having a good time. It was the one bird, the so-called angry bird, who was uttering the message and the rhetoric of, we cannot trust them. We have to be prepared. We don't need to be doing all of this partying and all this playing. But it fell on deaf ears. And because it fell on deaf ears, the plan of the pigs the whole time was to overthrow the birds and take their land. That's you and I, black man and woman. You keep playing too much. You keep thinking you got success. I keep telling you from the beginning of this episode that you're in a position where you think that you're progressing, but it's the total opposite. You're digging your own grave. You're regressing. You are regressing at an exponential rate. And because of that, you have no mechanism of defense. You have no sense of danger. So you don't know what's going on around you at what given time. You play and party too much because of the love for somebody who does not have no love for you. What am I saying? Yeah, the birds probably thought the pigs loved them or were their friends because they were playing and partying, but that was all a ploy. That wasn't their nature. Just because one has the ability to outwardly express some type of love or affection, you don't know how to discern their inward motives and agenda. And because of that, you're always left on the short end, with the short end of the stick. You're always left on the bottom. And being left on the bottom for us is being left in the grave. Well, you saying, well, I don't party, I don't play, I don't do any of those things. Well, a lot of our people play and celebrate by thinking that they have made some type of progress in the society. So we got judges and lawyers and doctorates. Well, I'm a doctor and I'm a this and I'm a that. Very well. Our people were the first doctors. Our people were the first lawyers and physicians and scientists and engineers. You created this whole planet as it relates to civilization. That's not no big thing on the larger scale. That's who you are. But now you've convinced yourself by being able to matriculate through their institutions, which you gave them. Now you have a watered down version of that reality. You think that you're successful. Yeah, you would be successful because, yeah, you lost knowledge of self. You lost knowledge of how to create and build and sustain civilizations, though you really haven't because you built this civilization, but you lost the ability to do it for self because, as the messenger stated, that loss of love of self. But now you would think at some point you would say, hey, I went through this 400 plus years of servitude. I've been in this place. I've learned everything you could possibly learn to be a free and sustainable people. Let me do everything that I acquired in their schooling, in their institutions, on their jobs, and do it for self. You refuse to do that, but yet you want to celebrate as if you accomplished something. You ain't accomplished nothing because we're still dying by the droves. Our people are still sick inside and outside. We're still being murdered by police. We're still being murdered by each other. And guess what? We're still being murdered by food. You can't stop eating salt and sugar and donuts and cakes. You're killing yourself with the food. Every avenue has been used to weaponize this way of life to kill the black man and woman. Let me finish this. The white slave master is so full of deceit that he can deceive you and all others, the Bible teaches us. The Holy Quran refers to the white slave master, the devil, as the arch deceiver. As a deceiver, the devil has no equal. He is the professional, the wisest of all deceivers. So from the slave master's preaching, making, parents, up to today, he is the professional and wisest deceiver of all the civilizations of the earth. He has deceived all of the civilizations of the earth. The Bible teaches that he deceived the whole world. The white slave master, the devil, did not deceive us, the black people in America alone. He has deceived every human being well except the angels of heaven. I'm going to finish on that. Why is that important? Why is that important? Because if you don't understand his ability to deceive, to lie, to trick, to mislead, you won't understand anything that's going on around you. So it is incumbent upon our people to realize that everything that we think that is going on that is a benefit, all of the energy that we're putting into everything except our freedom is only a ploy to keep us deaf, dumb, and blind, to keep us in this servitude, in this damnation that we're currently residing in. We got a master suite in hell. And we like it and we love it. We run towards it. Oh, brother and sister, you gotta wake up. You gotta realize the circumstances that you're in and you must do something about it. I ask you over and over again on this platform and whenever I speak to take a look at what's really going on. Take emotion out of it. Take your own personal bias out of it. You don't have your mind. Somebody else controls your mind. You're just a puppet while the puppeteer is moving and pulling the strings. I know it's harsh language to hear. I know it's unsatisfying to have someone tell you these things. But the reality is until we accept it and do something about it, we will continue to be in this circumstances, singing the song of hopefully change gonna come, instead of producing the change that is necessary to free our people. The messenger has came because God has come. Now it's time for us to do something about it. Now it's time for us to implement what has to be done versus verbalizing what really has no consequence to our growth and our development or to our benefit of acquiring freedom, justice, and equality. They're going to keep lying to you. They're going to keep deceiving you. And I'm going to finish on this. When I talked about our entertainers being our so-called thought leaders, I was looking at a program, Meek Mills, who's a rapper who was incarcerated. And they're using right now to push this idea called justice reform. And see, that goes the deceiver to use his means of language to confuse the people. Because how can you reform justice? To reform justice is really an oxymoron. Those are two diametrically opposed concepts as it relates to being beneficial for you and I. First, you have never received justice in this land. So you can't even have the ability to reform it. But even if you did reform justice, that would be worse off than actually having it. And I want to read to you what justice means to just show you we quote and throw these terms out and don't understand what we're saying or what we're doing. That's why nothing comes out of it. Now, justice. To me, justice. Now, just behavior or treatment. A concern of justice, peace, and genuine respect for people. Fairness. Equity. Neutrality. Honor, respect, righteousness, morality, virtue, principles, incorruptible, trustworthiness, the quality of being fair and reasonable. Those are some of the definitions and synonyms for justice. We don't have none of those things. And if we did, why would we want to reform them? Why would we want to change? Because reform means to change from original state. See, this is what you're up against. We say, well, it means the justice system. You know, the laws. And no. They don't have a justice system. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's non-existent. You are buying into a entity that is not real. It's an illusion. You're inside the matrix. It's like the guy said, I know I'm biting this steak even though it doesn't exist. You're going to something that does not exist. He said, well, they have the ability to arrest and imprison us. Yes, they do, because you give them that right. You give them that ability. All you have to do is separate and leave the slave master's reality, his world, his thinking, and you will be free. Separate, disconnect, pull yourself out of this entity, and he won't have power over you. And then do whatever it takes to defend that freedom. And I guarantee you, God will be on your side to maintain it. I thank you for listening. You could have been another place on playing, but you decided to be here. And also, I want to again thank Brother Halif Muhammad for last week's interview. It was such a marvelous time I had with Brother, and I look forward to having Brother Shahid Muslim on. And I'm going to try to get that done as soon as possible, and we can continue to get the members of Crow and also other guests as well. But remember, take heed to the teachings of the messenger of God, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and do not be afraid to understand the power of the God that gave him that knowledge and that information. Allah and the person who appeared as Master Farad Muhammad. I thank you again for listening to another installment of Know Thyself Radio, and I leave you as I came, in the words of peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum.